good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you are doing well. So I'm just going to go live on Instagram. Um, okay, so am I live? Yes, I am now live on Instagram. So good morning, everyone. I hope you are doing well. For those of you that do not know me and you're tuning into my broadcast for the first time, my name is June Allen and I am the founder of The Art of Greatness at juneallen.net. I'm a therapist. I am a racial wellness consultant and I am a coach, speaker, soon to be author. So, yes, good morning. I hope that you are all doing okay. So, today, I really wanted to talk to you about what does it mean to grieve our oppressors. Okay, what does it mean to grieve our oppressors? Obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, we all know now that Queen Elizabeth has passed. And I've seen a lot of stuff on social media about it, very, very different opinions that people have of it. But there's what I've seen overall is a lot of confusion, especially in our community about what's happening. People don't understand some people's behavior, people don't understand why people feel a certain type of way. And so I thought it would be, helpful for me to come on and just kind of share my perspective as to what I see going on, and to also give you some support around how you can kind of navigate this very complicated and complex situation that we find ourselves in. Okay, so I just wanted to go through a few things first, a little bit of housekeeping. So, so if there's anything on here that you want to follow up on, if you want to find out more about what I'm doing and all of that kind of stuff, you can find all the information about what I do at heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. You can find all the details of that in my bio. So I have 3 requests, okay, on this live stream. So if you have any questions at all, okay, about anything that I'm talking about, obviously you can drop stuff in the chat, questions in the chat, and I'm happy to answer them. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can always send me an email, info@yardofgreatness.com. And just a gentle reminder as well that this is not a substitute for therapy, okay? This is for information purposes only. Right, so let's get into the content. Okay, so as I said before, we now all know that Queen Elizabeth has passed. But what I have seen online is a lot of policing. Okay, I've seen a lot of people policing. Hi, thanks for joining Million Woman Rise. A lot of people trying to police people's feelings, saying that they're not allowed to do this, you need to respect the dead, all this sort of stuff. But I think what's really, really important to remember is that there are 2 parts to this. Okay, the first thing to remember is that there are 2 parts to this. The first part is that, yes, she has her own family and all the rest of it, and she's going to be missed by those people who she is directly related to. Okay, that's somebody's mother, that's somebody's grandma, that's somebody's sister, that's somebody's whoever. Okay, she is going to be missed by those people that are close to her. Okay, the second part of this is that her privileged life represented an institution, okay, that caused a lot of harm to a lot of people. Okay, she represented an institution that caused a lot of global harm worldwide. Okay, and on top of that, this institution has not made any amends for what they've done. Okay, and continue to profit, okay, of the things that they've done. Okay, so these are the 2 parts to it. Okay, there are there are those 2 parts to it that they're still profiting. So now for me now, as for me, my personal thing on it is that, my parents came from Jamaica. Okay, my parents are from the Windrush generation. They came over here in the 60s for a better life, and I remember my parents and my mum, in particular, telling me about how they basically used to learn about the Queen in school. They didn't even know their own history. They didn't even understand their own history. All they were taught in school was the Queen and all this sort of stuff. And obviously they were asked to come here. But when I've researched the history and all the rest of it, and there's 240 years of chattel slavery. Okay, there's 240 years of chattel slavery that my ancestors and even people in the community now are still paying for, emotionally, spiritually, physically, we're still trying to unpack and undo and repair and rebuild our communities after all of this. Now, obviously, I'm not related to the Queen personally. So for me, okay, I will not be grieving her loss. I'm not going to be disrespectful, okay, about her directly, but I also have a right to be clear about the fact that I will not be grieving her personally. I will not be grieving her loss because my relationship is with the institution. Okay? My relationship is with the institution, not with her personally. And so for me, having to, and for many people around the world, okay, that are dealing with this, okay, we have a relationship with the institution that has been abusive and continues to be abusive, okay? So that is the thing that for me and many other people are gonna be grappling with. A lot of people are gonna be thinking about that part of it because that is the relationship that we have with the institution, okay? Especially as Black people, okay? So then, what does grieving look like for us? Okay, what does that look like for us as Black people? Number one, we have to give ourselves permission to have our own experience. Okay, there are going to be people out there that are royalists. There are going to be people that are going to say this, that, and the other about we should respect the dead and do this, that, and the other. But my ancestors who have died, okay, underneath that institution that she was part of for all of that time, for her 70-year reign, okay, lived a privileged life. All right. My ancestors still that died, that were murdered under that institution, still deserve the right, okay, to be grieved. Okay. So when you're talking about respecting the dead, okay, yes, she is dead, but so are my ancestors. So are my ancestors. And there are people living today that continue to suffer and get ill because of what these institutions have done, what the system of racism has done and continues to inflict our lives and our health and all the rest of it. And so it's important that we give ourselves permission to have our experience. Now, some of us might feel confused by it. Some of us might feel angry. Some of us might feel numb. And all of those things are okay. Okay? All of those things are okay. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel confused. The thing is not to let other people try and police how you're feeling, saying, well, you shouldn't feel like that. You shouldn't feel angry, this, that, and the other. This is what we call in therapy complicated grief. It's complicated. It's complicated. Okay? And so it's important to allow people the space to be able to feel whatever they're feeling and experience whatever they're experiencing. And for a lot of us, it's not going to be warm and fuzzy and all the rest of it. Because a lot that institution, the relationship that we have with it is painful. Okay? It's torture. It's painful. Okay? So it's important that we give ourselves permission to have our experience. All right? It's important that we give ourselves permission to have our experience. Now, the next thing that's in terms of having your experience and processing, there was something that I learned. I'm currently doing some work with Rashma. I don't know if you those of you that are familiar with Reshma Menachen's book, My Grandmother's Hands. It's an amazing book. It's all about racial trauma and stuff like that. And there's a section in the book where he talks about clean pain and dirty pain. Okay? He talks about clean pain and he talks about dirty pain. Now, dirty pain is the pain of our history. The pain that's kind of stacked on top of each other. It's intergenerational, it's historical, it's all of that stuff that we hold in our DNA, in our bodies, stuff that's been passed down through our families. It's all of that stuff that we hold on to, and also stuff that's in our lifetime as well. It's not just historical and intergenerational, it's the stuff that we've gone through in our history, okay, in our personal histories, and that we still haven't dealt with. Okay, that's what Reshma defines as dirty pain, and that's the pain that creates illness, that creates sickness, that creates mental health issues. Okay, that creates all of the cesspit of rage and all of that stuff that we haven't dealt with. It all gets backed up, and it becomes, over time, it can look like personality traits. It can look like culture, but really, it's pain. It's old pain that we haven't dealt with. Okay, so Reshma calls that dirty pain. Now, clean pain is the pain that happens in the moment. Okay, pain that happens in the moment. It's also things like having to make decisions about things that you know you don't really want to look at, but you know that it's good for your well-being. Okay, so going to therapy, as an example, is a good example of what clean pain is. You go to therapy, you know, it feels painful going to therapy. You know, you might have to set a boundary with somebody, is another example. You know, it's going to hurt to set the boundary around that person, but it's, you know, that it's important for your well-being to be able to do that. Okay, so for us as Black people, a lot of us are marinating in a lot of dirty pain, old pain, intergenerational pain, historical pain, old family of origin patterns that we've just, you know, that have been passed down through the generations that we don't even know is pain, but it's showing up in our behavior and in our relationships in ways that don't serve us. Okay, that's dirty pain. Okay, so in order to, for us to start processing that, we have to find ways in order to be able to do that, and we can do that in community. Okay, one of the things that I'm doing at the moment is, at the beginning of October, I've got it's called the Sacred Sister Study Group that I'm going to be relaunching. So we use different books to anchor the conversation, and it's basically, it's a mixture of group therapy, racial wellness, and also, you know, knowledge. So we improve our critical thinking skills and all, or whatever. And there's 4 different books that I'm going to be using to anchor the conversation. But we use that as an anchor to be able to work through our healing process, to work through different things. If you want to find out more about the study circles, you can go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. Okay, so you can do it in community. All right, you can do it in one-to-one therapy as well. I have got a few spaces left for one-to-one therapy. So if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, you can go to the same link and you can find out more information there about how you can work with me. Okay, so you can do it in your journal. Okay, you can just write about how you're feeling, write about the impact that the Queen's existence, the monarchy, the institution, how has that had an impact on your family? How has it had an impact on how you feel about yourself? How has it had an impact on your relationships? And I know these are really deep questions and they're loaded, but this is all an important part of the grief process. A lot of the clients that I work with, you know, a lot of the work that I do with them is grief work. It's grief work. It's grief work and understanding and unpacking the dirty pain, unpacking the dirty pain that's been stuck in their tissues, in their thinking, in their behavior. All of that stuff is all, you know, they're holding on to it, and they need a safe space to be able to start unpacking it. They need to be able to understand and join the dots between who they are today, what's happened in their history, in their, within their family of origin, and then what's happened in terms of their relationship to whiteness. Okay, I call that the triangle of awareness. Those are the 3 points that I work with when I work with clients. Okay, that stuff is really, really important, and that's how you begin to start to process the pain that we're in. Okay, so you can use your journal to start to unpack those things. Okay, something that I was thinking about today as well that might be important, you know, and you might think it sounds a bit silly to start off with, but write a no send letter, okay, to the Queen. You know, obviously don't send it, but write out, you know, cuss her out if you need to cuss her out. Write about all of the things that have impacted your family as a result of that institution. Okay, this is how we can begin to grieve what's happened to us and to begin to understand the relationship that we have to the Queen and the institution that she belongs to, that she's held up for all of that time when so many of us around the globe were suffering. Okay, so really think about that. Think about what needs to be processed. Think about how you're feeling. Think about the impact of all of these things on your ability to thrive in the now. Okay, and write out all of those things. Write it out in your journal and write a no send letter about how you feel directly to her. Obviously, don't send it, but you know, but write it out so that you have an understanding and you've got a place to start to unpack a lot of this. Because I think a lot of us are holding on to this stuff, you know, and we're not really having these conversations. We're not really having these conversations. And it needs to be not just about how we feel about it, but about, tools that we can use to begin to process this stuff. Okay, to begin to really, really process it. Another thing that we can do is talk to your ancestors. Talk to your ancestors. Something that I know that I'm going to be doing is, doing some altar work. If you don't already have an altar, a place where you can do your meditation and all of that kind of stuff, your prayer or whatever, is to spend some time, doing your altar work. Freshen up your altar, think about, spend time around, doing your altar work, talking to your ancestors. Do you need to maybe change some imagery? Is there some affirmations, some prayers? There's something that I've got on mine at the moment, which I'm going to be using particularly over the next few days. Is when I went to Ghana back in 2019. We went to, gosh, I forget the name of the place now. But it was a place in Ghana. It was a castle where a lot of our ancestors were taken from, before they actually got on the ship. Okay, before they were actually forced onto these ships, it was like a holding place. It was something castle. I can't remember the name of it now. But when I went there, I basically took up some of the sand and some of the soil when I was there, because I thought, and I also bought some shells and things like that, which is on my altar. And so it's almost like having some of the soil from there was quite symbolic for me, in recognizing that the pain and the trauma and the blood that was spilled on that beach, on that castle, on the beach, before they kidnapped our ancestors and put them on these ships, to go to the Caribbean and other places. And so I will be, really focusing and meditating, with this soil that I have, and just really giving myself permission to weep and to cuss and to reflect, and to just, reset my thinking around, okay, well, what am I doing, in terms of the work? How can I begin to speak, and do the work that my ancestors weren't able to do? Okay, that's something that's really, really big. Thank you so much for that, Cape Coast Castle. Was it Cape Coast? I think it was the Elmina Castle, actually. It might have been the Elmina Castle. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Um, but yeah, it was. I mean, when I went there, it was just so profound, and I had such a visceral reaction. I remember feeling like I wanted to throw up. It was horrendous. And the guide that was telling us all of the stories and stuff about what happened was really it was an amazing experience, but incredibly painful. Hi Marie, thanks for joining. Incredibly painful. So yeah, just giving yourself permission to talk to your ancestors, reset your thinking around your relationship with spirituality, and think about what you can do for your ancestors in the moment that they weren't able to do. Okay, what are you able to do now that your ancestors weren't able to do? How can you have a voice today? Okay, how can you have a voice now, around, in honor and respect for what your ancestors were not able to do? Our ancestors were not able to, on the plantations, were not able to think. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have a voice. They weren't able to, have healthy relationships. They weren't able to read. There were so many things that our ancestors were not able to do. And so, for me, part of my grieving process around all of this thing is really thinking about, how can I begin to really think about what I'm doing? How can I continue to serve my community? One of the reasons why I do these live streams every week is because, I want to be able to share and have a voice. I wanted to be able to say the things and empower other people in the community to do things that our ancestors were not able to do. With everything that I've learned training as a therapist and whatever, I'm always thinking, how can I take what I've learned in, on my training, and make it relevant to us? How can I make it relevant to us as the Black community? How can I use that to turn it into content, to turn it into trainings, to turn it into, tools and stuff like that are going to be beneficial for us? Okay, how can I do that? That is the way that I honor my ancestors. And part of my grieving process is going to be about continuing to think about how I can continue to serve the community. Okay, so it's about maybe something, and it doesn't have to be whatever you choose to do. It might not necessarily have to be a big thing. Okay, it can be a small thing. It can be a small thing. It can be as simple as you just doing your own work and not underestimating the power of what it means to do your own work. Because every time, you do your own work, every time you do your journaling, every time you show up at therapy, every time you show up at a recovery meeting, every time you read another book, even listening to this broadcast, okay, you're doing something that your ancestors were not allowed to do. And that means you're changing your thinking, you're breaking patterns, okay, you're changing things that our ancestors were not able to do. And that is that is one of the that is something that you can do in a healthy way. Do something with that anger, do something with that grief, do something with with the sorrow and all of that stuff that the confusion that you're feeling around, that you may be feeling around all of this stuff around the Queen's death and the institution and all of that kind of stuff. Use all of that energy, okay, to take care of yourself and to channel it into something that is going to empower the future, okay, future generations of people that are going to be, that they're going to be going on before us, okay? Oh, sorry, going on after us. Okay, so the last thing that I want to share around this, how we can begin to, grieve our oppressors, okay, or grieve the institutions that our oppressors belong to, is to really think about your current triggers, okay? I've kind of made the decision that I'm not going to be on social media that much at the minute. I come on to do these live streams, and I check in to see what's happening with my community and stuff like that. But I'm not going to be watching the BBC. I'm not going to be watching the funeral next week because it is going to be triggering as hell. Okay, the funeral is going to be next Monday, I believe, and so I will probably spend Monday, again thinking about my ancestors. I will be doing meditation. I will be pouring libation. I will be reading. I will be connecting with my community. There will be things that I will be doing that are going to help me remember the suffering that my ancestors were put through because of this situation, because of the institution that the Queen belonged to, because of the institution that continues to profit from and live their privileged lives off the backs of the death of not just our ancestors, but many indigenous communities that were wiped out, okay, that were wiped out in their pursuit of power. Okay, and listen, I'm not going to apologize for this. I'm telling you now, do not come in my inbox. Okay, I don't want nobody coming in my inbox telling me about I need to be doing this, or I should be respecting the Queen, and she was your monarch, and she ain't my monarch. Okay, so Marie's saying I have some clearing today, next Monday, and also to rest where I can too. Yeah, I think it's important. It's important. Use that as an opportunity to do some clearing. Think about how you are going to spend next Monday, because it is going to be all over the news. It's going to be it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be everywhere. And so it's going to be difficult to escape it. And even just flicking through, yesterday I was just kind of flicking through the catch up guide on Channel 4, and they had, I don't know how many different documentaries about how fantastic she was and this, that, and the other. Well, for me, her in the institution, that's not how I see it, and that's not how a lot of people feel. That's the reality. That's the reality. So it's about really taking the time to take care of yourself, okay, and give yourself permission. Find the space to be able to have your experience, okay. And if people want to start coming in your inbox and trying to police how you feel, give yourself permission to unfollow them. Unfollow people, block people. Let people they're entitled to whatever they're doing today, or whatever they're going to be doing on Monday, or around how they feel. They're allowed to have their experience, but you're also allowed to have yours. You're also allowed to have yours. So if anybody tries to police how you're feeling, put some boundaries around them. Anyone's trying to gaslight you, put some boundaries around them. Okay, so just be mindful that the news is going to have all of this stuff in it. Social media is going to have a lot of stuff in it. And, but it's important for you to give yourself permission to feel what you need to feel. Okay, reflect on the impact that it's had. Okay, and look after yourself. Look after yourself and find your community. Find a community. Okay, we are not obliged to grieve those who have oppressed us and continue to oppress us. We are not obliged, okay, I'm going to say it again for the people in the back. We are not obliged to grieve those who have oppressed us and who continue to oppress us. Okay, because it's not something that's happened in the past. Yes, our ancestors were, brutalized and all the rest of it, but the institution is still alive and kicking. She might be dead, okay, Queen Elizabeth might be dead, but the institution is still alive and cooking. There's still people profiting from it. There's still people being oppressed by it and all the rest of it. So I am not obliged. You are not obliged, okay, to grieve our oppressors. We're not obliged to do that, okay? And don't feel like you owe anyone any sort of explanation for how you're feeling. Okay? You don't owe anyone an explanation. Okay? Anyone trying to police you, you do not owe them an explanation for how you're feeling. Okay? Your feelings are valid. All right? Your feelings are valid, and you are not obliged to grieve anyone part of that institution that has been continues to oppress us. Okay? So that's it. That's what I wanted to share with you today. So however you choose to use this information, I hope you found this useful. If you found it really useful, you know anyone else that might find it useful, who's feeling a bit confused, not really sure what's going on for them around all of this, send it to them, share it with them. If you would like to, find a community, if you would like to work with me one-on-one, you can click the link in my bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. And I will see you next time. Thanks ever so much. Have a great day. Bye.